Hello, family. Welcome back to the Bennie and Bennie podcast, where we invest our time in real talk, biblical truth, and everyday wisdom. I appreciate you guys so much for checking back in with us this week. So, one topic that we have this week is going to be effective communication. That's the art of effective communication. I am your host, Bennie Jr. This is my father, Bennie Sr. You want to go ahead and take away with the topic today?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about effective communications. I think a lot of people don't really spend a lot of time talking about this as a subject matter, but it's very important that we understand how to do it effectively. So communication falls into four different categories. The first one being vocal, second one non-vocal, the third one is written, and the fourth one is visual. So we're going to be talking about primarily today is the physical aspect, not the physical aspect, but the vocal aspect of communication. Me talking to you or several other people, and you doing the same likewise. And so there are two categories of what happens in the form as we communicate with one another. There's two things that can be happening with the other people or the person. That person is, let's assume that it's just me and you talking this stuff. So what happens is that you're either listening to reply or listening to understand.
Uh-huh.
And one of those things will dictate whether the conversation is effective or not.
Understand. So with that, the listening to reply, I can see a lot of people that kind of be more so of the general or the more populated way of communicating is people listening to reply rather than people listening to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So people are holding these conversations with other people, whether it's family or randoms or whoever the case may be, and they're having these conversations, but instead of taking the time to hear out what it is exactly the person is saying or the topic or problem that the person is trying to convey and get across, they're able to speak, but they're not able to be heard because the other person is more so concerned about replying or concerned about putting in their 2 cents or getting their own point across rather than hearing the original person out and effectively communicating back and forth to where you both are hearing each other out and both are having understanding of one another.
Right, because when you're in a conversation with another person, whether that being one or more people, it's vitally important that you do not listen to reply. Because if you listen to reply, you're going to hear part of the conversation, and then when it's time for you to reply, you're going to reply with something that's totally different from what the person was actually saying because you didn't take the time to understand. Now, it's not an easy thing to do. I have to think about it and practice it myself a lot. It's been a big problem for me because I start searching for my reply almost at the beginning of the conversation. So if you do that in that manner, then you're going to miss 80% or more of what the person is saying. So when it's time for you to respond, you can't respond intelligently because you didn't hear what was the total conversation was about. And so this happened to me one time in business. So I remember we were having a corporate meeting, and you got a lot of executives there in the meeting, and we're talking about a lot of different things. And at one point, I just kind of tuned out.
Mm-hmm.
There was a person next to me on my left, and she was taking notes, just taking notes. And then at the end of the conversation, they wanted different people from, one person from each table to say something. And so I thought she was going to say something just based on the fact that she was taking notes. I wasn't taking notes. So what happens is that they start going around the room, and then they got to our table, and then the person that was sitting to my left, now she's the VP of Human Resources, so she's kind of high on the totem pole, and so she said, "I'm gonna let Bennie give an example on this conversation," and I had to come up with something really, really fast. This is when you have to, what they say, think on your feet type thing. And so She asked me to explain what had been was saying. But what I did, which was fortunate for me, is that I did listen to what everybody else said.
Yeah.
So when it got to me, every table had spoken except the table that I'm at.
Yeah.
And so immediately I took all of what I heard, the part of the beginning of the conversation that the CEO was saying. I took all the responses that I heard to the question. And so when I stood up to speak, I spoke to everyone was, actually they was amazed at what I said.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I just have a sigh of relief that I had something to say
Yeah.
that was relevant to the conversation. So we have to be very careful in how we communicate with each other, whether that's in a corporate environment, family environment, or just a relational thing. And so in conversation, it's not just what is being said, it's how it's being said. So you can talk to certain people. I had a boss one time, and I'm asking him a question about something, and his reply was, "What?" He just yelled.
Yeah.
He just yelled it out
Yeah.
real quick, and it took me by surprise, and it took me a while to understand. That's his natural response.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, okay, he don't want me asking him
Yeah.
this question, but I noticed over time that he does that regardless. Of,
Yeah.
and most of the time, what happened is that in that situation, is that I don't even have to say what I said again, because he did
He
actually
did
hear
hear
me.
you. Yeah.
Right, but that's how he communicated. So, like I said, that it's important that we know how to communicate with people, because sometimes it's just the tone of our voice can sound negative, and if the tone sounds negative, even though it's not negative, the person that you're talking to is going to reply the same way that you received the message.
Yeah. So even with the tone not sounding, I guess, positive, or it can be a positive thing, but it's coming off as negative.
Right.
There's situations where people are responding to certain things, and they're using body language as a way of communicating, or a way of understanding that, okay, their body language is off, or they have some type of disposition to where they feel like they're not being heard because they're speaking to them and their head is down.
Mm-hmm.
So they're taking that form of communication, or that body language, as, okay, well, I'm speaking to you and your head's not down, so you're not paying me any attention.
Mm-hmm.
When actually that is not necessarily the case. So people are probably often getting sensitive or overly emotional over misunderstandings.
Right.
Really, people are thinking that things are one way, or things are being said one way, and it's just being misinterpreted. I've come across plenty of situations where somebody is just saying something very casual,
Mm-hmm.
and they're saying it casually to a regular person that would have regular conversation with, and that second person is responding, like you're saying, they're listening to reply, and they're responding and saying, why'd you say that like that, or what do you mean, why do you say that like that? And that original person hasn't said it any particular way.
Yeah.
They're literally just speaking casually as they normally would, but the other person is looking to reply, or they're looking to, it's just not coming across to them the way that, for whatever reason, it's coming across in a negative light.
Mm-hmm.
So now that is making the conversation more so turning left, or more so combative or negative, rather than understanding, and rather than being patient with each other and trying to figure out what is the problem, or where is the communication going left. And one person is quick to shout out and, oh, why'd you say this, or what do you mean by this, instead of remaining calm in the situation, using appropriate body language. Someone's talking to you, you look at them and you let them know that I'm giving you my undivided attention. So they feel that respect is there, and they're listening to you, you're listening to them, and now there's mutual respect, and the conversation feels more mutual because you've given this person your undivided attention and things like that.
Yeah. So what you just talked about was the nonverbal communications.
Mm-hmm.
What is what is exactly what you said is the way you act as far as your body moving, whether you are looking at the person or whether you're looking down at something else, or looking away to the side, left or right, to the side. So this has been a problem for me growing up because I was a shy kid growing up, and so talking to someone and looking directly at them was it just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And so even now, I'm not totally comfortable with that, and so but I'm mindful of it, and so I try to practice that so that people won't think that okay, he's not really paying attention because he talks, but he's not even looking at me when he talks. But for my situation though, that's not the case. I am listening, but I have to I guess train myself or force myself to be looking at you while we're carrying on this conversation, because that's just not a comfortable thing for me to do. I can do it, but it's not comfortable for me to do, and it doesn't mean that I'm not listening to you, but I can see how someone could interpret it that way.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, and when we're having these conversations, and people are kind of, once conversations start to go left or start to get a little heated or tensions start to rise, people can often use that conversation to where it turns negative, and it's gotten so negative or gotten so heated that it's hard to reel that back in to where we're able to remain that respect factor, and we're able to keep a level head and stay respectful for one another within the conversation, and finding out, okay, they said this for this reason, or they said this and I'm just misinterpreting it the way that that's come across.
Right.
So you're using your tone of voice as an excuse to think that, okay, well, they're being aggressive and they just have a deeper voice and this is just their natural way of talking. And so that's with somebody. A way to fix that is just being patient with the other person, having a good understanding of the other person, to know that I know this person has no real intentions of hurting me with words or anything like that, even though it does sometimes happen. It's a common thing to happen where words are hurtful, or words have affected someone in a negative way or in a negative light. Regardless that wasn't their intentions. When it does happen, ways to pull back or ways to get back on track is to just remain calm in that situation, be patient with the other person to where you're able to try to get some understanding in between the both of you. Sometimes like a flight or situation to where you're kind of running away from the problem, where the altercation has come, and now you're kind of distancing yourself, you're kind of detaching yourself from that, kind of walking away from the situation. That can sometimes work in some instances. Relationships, maybe sometimes in a business aspect, that walk away factor can be beneficial for the purpose of calming down the situation, but that doesn't always work. So what other effective ways do you think can be done when a conversation has gone completely left and it's both of you aren't having the understanding that you need to have?
So most people would say, well, one of you need to kind of calm down and bring down the anxiety that's creeped into the conversation. Some people would say just walk away. That makes all of us sounds easy to do, but I don't know. So when that conversation catches you by surprise, the thought that I need to calm this down doesn't, in reality, that doesn't come to your mind.
Yeah.
Uh, you don't have that. Nothing. It's very seldom that the thought of walking away even comes to your mind. Uh, or let's say, okay, tell the other person, hey, we'll pick this up later, and we're not going to talk about it right now. That sounds good,
Yeah.
but
Sometimes that doesn't work.
yeah,
The other person.
in my experience, that doesn't work. So, well, let me put it this way, because that's not totally true. So, a relationship with someone that I really care about, and we have this uh, exchange where things have been said out of order, and you got to put it back in order. Give you a perfect example. Just a few days ago. So, a few days ago, I had a conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
I said something to you. I won't go into the details, but you said something about, I don't even know why you're talking about that. So by your tone, I know this is a conversation we really can't have about that, because you didn't think I should even have said what I said.
Mm-hmm.
But as your father, I'm thinking I do have the right to tell you this, and you
Mm-hmm.
need to listen.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it was with me at that particular time. But here's the thing. So when that happens, like it did with you,
Mm-hmm.
so later on we have a conversation later, and then during that conversation, I explained why I said what I said, and I explained to you why it benefited not just me, but it benefited you to hear what I said, so you can have a clear understanding of what I meant. So when we had that second conversation, it's now it's cordial. Now it's the right, because now you can really hear me.
Mm-hmm.
You hear what I'm saying. You understand why I said it, and so now whatever negative things that you had in your mind from the beginning, now that's all gone, because we took the time to absorb, to digest the conversation as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
so that we could come to a rational uh, frame of mind that both of us agreed to what the conversation was meant to do.
Mm-hmm. So after we come together and we revisit that conversation, I think when anytime a conversation gets heated, a key factor is being able to own up to what was wrong about the situation. So that situation with us, we were able to revisit the situation, kind of rekindle the situation, and okay, I was wrong in the way that I said this. You spoke about my tone and how I didn't understand why that was even brought up. You spoke about I spoke about your tone and why I felt that it was kind of like attacking in that way. And so now we've had time to pass. We've allowed time to pass. We've allowed the slight tension to calm down, and now we've able to revisit the conversation, and I have an understanding of why you said it, and how you said it doesn't really matter anymore. It's the fact that you said it and understanding why it was said. You understand my perspective now that we've come back and we've calmed down and able to talk about it, just enough to have understanding. It's not something that we have to harp on or
Right.
anything. But we're able to come back and have the conversation of just understanding. And now you understand why I was defensive, because I was innocent in the situation. So now you apologize, I apologize. Like we're saying, that's a major key in any communication that we have. When it starts to go left, it's heated, things like that. So now we're able to make amends, and that small situation doesn't have to blow up into this huge altercation, because from the start it was a very minor thing. So just having the patience, the care enough to want to fix the little bit of tension. Sometimes it's okay to, I guess, kind of, I don't really think sweeping it under the rug, whatever situation might come, whether it's between me and you or anybody in the world. The sweeping it under the rug factor or ideology, I don't think that's all that effective in the long run because you haven't really solved whatever the situation is. You've kind of just forgotten and left it alone for the time being. But as long as it's swept up under the rug and it's not really talked about or spoken on, later on, it's very likely for that to come back up again.
Exactly.
So to refrain from that happening and to keep from, going back and forth about old stuff, it's best that we find a healthy way to communicate those problems or those differences because we are going to have differences. We are going to have different opinions, different interests, different hobbies. We're two different people. We're not gonna be on the same page 24/7 all the time. So when those do happen, those altercations and things like that, being able to identify what the situation is, why this person said this, why this person said that, even if it takes a day or two or a couple hours, just being able to reset, reassess yourself, and then later revisit the conversation in a respectful way, in a patient and calm way to where, okay, I understand what you're saying now. I understand what you're saying now. And we can make amends and moving forward, this is how we'll communicate and try to communicate moving forward so we don't get to this point again.
Yeah. So and to piggyback off what you said, there's uh, an interesting story in the book of Isaiah, the first chapter, uh, and it kind of goes along with what you were just saying there with the uh, speaking in a certain way or just getting things off your chest that you just got to say. And so if you read that passage of scripture, you'll see that God is really upset with his people. He's upset because they're diving deeper and deeper in sin, and he's laying out all these things that they have done. So just like the conversation with you, and even though we weren't talking about a lot of things, we were talking about one thing in particular, but it's the same. It's the same, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
one thing or whether it's a combination of things. But so you see God involved in this, and so one thing it shows me that the conversation is important. If it's important to God, then it should be important to us. And so He shows us how to calm the situation down, so to speak. Even though He's the only one that's speaking, but you can tell that his disappointment is huge.
Mm-hmm.
So as the conversation goes, so God is upset. So there are moments when I may be upset with you, or I may be upset with my wife, or some of my other children, whatever they have said and done. But the 18th verse was the key for me. So how do you distinguish, or how do you uh, bring calm to a heated conversation? Because I viewed this as one of those heated conversation moments. And so in the midst of that, in the 18th verse, God calms the situation down. And his response is, come, let us reason together.
Mm-hmm.
And then he began to lay out the benefits of doing so. And so, to me, when situations get, the earlier we can distinguish the heat, the heated part, the better it is. And so, that story just taught me that when you're in that situation, someone has to have a level head to bring it to a halt so that you can really talk about it intelligently. So that one side is not yelling at the other and back and forth. Because there are very little times when things are solved in that manner. That being said, though, I remember very vividly a few years ago where I had a heated conversation with someone at work, and it didn't go this way. Yeah, I can think Now I can look at it now and say, well, maybe I should have handled that differently. Uh, but in the end, I got the desired outcome. But it's totally different from what we're saying now. It wasn't okay. You speak calm and be quiet and walk away from the situation. That wasn't it for me at all. And so I think we have to look at it on both sides. Yeah, that's the ideal thing to do, uh, but that's not what you're going to do all the time because we're human and sometimes we react very quick to a situation. So the situation went like this. So I got a call from a sales guy. He needs help with something, and I said, okay, I'll help you, and I laid out what I'm going to do for him. And so he shows up to my office same day, later in the day. And he just walks in and he starts saying, you should have did this, you should have did that, you should have did all the things that he's saying. Now, we're not having a conversation at all. He's coming into my office telling me what I should
Attacking
have
you,
done.
what you should have done.
But the problem is that I'm the boss.
Yeah.
You can't tell me what, and I saw that like God said, I'm the boss. So I'm the boss, so you can't tell me what I can and cannot do. So when he comes in with that type of attitude, I didn't do what we said. I wasn't calm in that situation. I didn't tone it down and say, "Hey, let's just put this to the side. We'll talk about it another day." No, we're going to talk about it right now. That was my way of handling the situation. And but here's the thing: that was not an argument. He said what he wanted to say. Then I said what I needed to say, and it was loud. I mean, everybody in the building could hear it. And so, after that, he walks away. I started doing whatever I needed to do on my job that particular day. And less than 30 minutes later, he comes back to my office, and he apologizes for what he said. Now, that doesn't work in our situation. But when I look back on it, that was the only way that I could solve the problem at the time. And so I would never suggest that when you find yourself in that situation that you do what I did, because I don't think that's the correct way to do it. I don't think that it always worked that way. It worked for me that time, but that's not my preferred way to handle a situation. My preferred way is to walk away, is to put myself in a position to where the conversation has to die down. And the way you can do that is that you do not respond.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you can get up and walk out of the room, get up and walk out of the room. Explain to the person, we're not going to talk about this right now. We'll talk about it later. Get up and leave the room. That person may get angry because you left the room, but you distinguished the anxiety that was building up in the room. And so later on, after you had time to calm down, the other person had time to calm down, then you come back and you talk about the situation like adults.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one thing, when I listen to you say that, I know one thing that pops out in my mind is the phrase that I think we've all probably heard is "sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." And for me, from my perspective as a kid, that was backwards for me as a kid. As most kids are, we're sensitive to words. We're sensitive to what other people think,
Mm-hmm.
what other people might say. So as a child, that was opposite for me, and I cared a lot about what people said, what people thought, and words did affect me. Now, as time went on, and I grew within myself, and I've developed as a man, words from other people, especially negatively, talking down or threats or taunting and things like that, those things don't affect me nearly as much as they would have when I was 15 or something like that. So I think having that mind, I don't know if it's a mindset or if it's a characteristic or a self-esteem, a confidence, I don't know what to really call it, but having having that characteristic about you to where you are able to brush off words that are being said about you or words that are being uh, thrown at you, because people are going to talk about you regardless, whether you respond, whether you don't respond, whether you have anything to do with what they're talking about. People are going to, for whatever reason, try to attack you or try to throw words and scenarios and all these different things in you at you and try to down you. However, from my perspective, I've grown and I've learned to not let that hold so much weight as I did when I was 15, 16 years old. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to also practice, as well as myself. I'm not perfect. I do react in situations, and I look back and I think, okay, I reacted in that situation instead of, kept calm and patiently kind of waited it out and de-escalated the situation. I kind of probably added more fuel to the fire. So I think being able to evaluate yourself and evaluate the situation to where you do have that confidence in yourself to know, okay, people are going to say what they're going to want to say whenever they want to say it, but I'm not going to allow other people's words to have that much effect on me, no matter how much I care about them, love them, or whatever the case may be. Even if it's just a stranger, especially if it's just a stranger, those things aren't going to be what breaks me or what makes me. We should all, I think, get ourselves to a point to where we have that confidence and that self-esteem in ourselves, not in an arrogant way, but just loving ourselves to where people are going to try to down you regardless of whatever the situation is, whether they know you personally, whether they don't know you personally. And it might hurt a little more hearing hurtful things coming from somebody that you know personally and they know you personally. So I think in those situations where those instances do happen, for people that you know personally and they know you personally, it's those situations that you have to be able to kind of step back from, and you need to have, the both of you need to have a solid understanding of one another. Okay, he's like this for this reason, or I know this is how he reacts to conflict, and it's not him being nonchalant, or it's not her just being emotional or sensitive. This is how they react in these situations. I know this. We've been through this before. So learning from history how to respond effectively and better than what it was that we did the last time.
Yeah. So take this, listening to what you're saying. So that reminds me of a scripture in the Bible that's found in Proverbs 18:21, and it says the power of death and life is in the tongue. Uh, that being said, I think it shows us how powerful words can be. Words can destroy people. Words causes wars. And so it's very important that we as an individual understand that we have to be very careful. So now we have a weapon that all of us have. And the weapon can be deadly. And it's just words. Because words can uplift people, words can put people down, words can destroy people's lives. So you can be called, you can be charged for something that you didn't do because someone said you did something, and now you incarcerated for words that someone has said. So what I've learned from this, even now while we're just sitting here, which I think if we don't learn why we're having these conversations, then we need to stop having the conversations, for otherwise they won't benefit anybody. But I think it needs to benefit us more so than those that come and listen to what we have to say. So putting all of this together, what it lets me know that the most important conversation we will ever have in life is the conversation we have with ourselves. And I don't think we take the time to realize that I don't have to wait for you to. I don't need you to validate me.
For sure.
I don't need you to encourage me. The Bible, there's scripture in the Bible says, encourage yourself. I don't need that from an outside person. Uh, I can lift myself up.
It
And
feels
so,
good to have those things,
yeah,
but
because
we
that
don't need those.
and that's what you need to do. The conversation, for me, every morning, my conversation is, I've already talked about how my day is going to go. How grateful I am for the day being what it is, even though I haven't even started the day yet. So it's important that we speak the conversation we have with ourselves. And I think this is true, that the conversation we have with ourselves will always be a reflection of the life that we live.
Hmm.
And so if you're around someone that's always negative, they're always putting other people down and all these bad things that they say about other people, the reason that happens is because that's the conversation they have with themselves. And the only way to get it out is to attack other people with the things that we have put in our own lives that we didn't even need to address.
For sure, for sure. And I could definitely attest to that. I've witnessed that, I've seen that, and that I definitely would say that's a true statement. Other people not having spent enough time with themselves, spent enough time encouraging themselves, and like I said before, not in a arrogant way or a selfish way, but knowing that we are important people, knowing that maybe this is something they didn't grow up experiencing it, they didn't grow up with other people telling them that, where whatever upbringing they had, maybe they just didn't get told, that they were special and things
Right.
like that. But knowing that we are special and that we are important, we do have value. Being able to find that value within ourselves, being able to pull that out of ourselves, and like you're saying, the conversation that we have with ourselves is more than likely, easily the most important conversation that we're gonna have, uh, because all around us every day that we go outside, you're gonna hear all types of conversation, whether they're negative, positive, uh, purposeless. There's gonna be all types of conversation, and you can easily be dragged into the conversation and be pulled one way or another. Um, but if you have had these conversations with yourself enough to know who you are as a person, what it is that you believe in, what it is that you don't believe in, and then the person that if you have a spouse or whatever, co-workers, whatever other people you meet, you already have this understanding within yourself and this moral compass within yourself to where you can stand on that, and you can, it might not be every single conversation or every single altercation, but you do know that you do have it in you to resolve escalated situations. You do have it in you to speak life into yourself and speak life into the next person as well. And when things do get heated, you do have the spirit in you to know how to work around that, how to go about de-escalating the situation and making it purposeful again, or coming back to rekindle that to where, okay, we're back on the same page again, we're back on the same playing field, and now we can move forward without sweeping things under the rug and it getting brought up months later, and now we right back where we started or in a worse position because we bringing up old stuff now.
Right.
So I think that's very powerful what you said, being able to hold conversations with yourself. That's one of the most meaningful things that we can be doing.
Yeah. When it comes to communicating with others, like I said, the most important conversation will be the one you have with yourself, but it lays a foundation for you to build upon. Uh, that conversation can go from you to other
Other
people,
people.
so that they can live their full life. Uh, but the thing is, what we have to understand is, well, for me specifically, uh, all the things that we said, we're not experts. We're just living life like everybody else, and so we all fall into these certain situations, and and it's important that we know when we get in various situations, how do we get out? How do we do something positive in the face of something negative? So what I've learned along the journey is that, first of all, I'm not the type of person that dwells in confrontation. I hate confrontation.
Yeah.
Confrontation. So I'm trying to avoid confrontation at all
By all
costs.
means.
So when I see that rising up, I do analyze the situation, and immediately start thinking about, okay, what do, not the other person, what do I need to do to get out, not even solve the problem that we're talking about, but how to get out of it, so that we're not talking about it uh, at least anymore that day or that time, that we push it aside to some uh, other date in the future. The problem with all of this is that, there are some easy things that we said you can do. At least they sound easy.
Hmm.
Uh, but everything that we said involving communication is something that we have to practice all the time. And we have to practice it mentally first, before we can practice it externally. And so for me, I think about these kind of things all the time. What message am I sending to other people based on my tone of voice, based on my mannerism when I'm having a conversation with the person, and all of those things? Because the conversation itself uh, can be a conversation that you're not even comfortable with talking to the person about it. And there are certain people, there are conversations I can have with you that I can't have that same conversation with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to know the person or persons that we are talking to, what kind of people are they?
Yeah.
And so that kind of to guide the way that you have the conversation in the first place.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I was always brought up to treat people like I wanted to be treated, and I think that boils over into conversation as well. That you have these conversations with people, and you have it in a manner that if they were in charge of the conversation, that they would do it a certain way. That you want to know that the conversation that you're having, the way you do it is the way you want them to do it if they were in charge of the conversation. Of course, that doesn't always happen, but that's the mindset that I have within that frame of thought. I want to have a conversation that's peaceful, that when we walk away from the conversation at the very end, you understood what I said, I understand what you said. Easy, not always. But that's the outcome that we want. Whether we get to a common ground today, whether we get to it next week or next month or whatever, that's the outcome that I think both parties want that type of outcome.
Well, both parties, for sure, for sure. So all in all, y'all, words can bring war or words can bring peace. Let's choose peace and communicate with each other effectively, positively, in a healthy manner, to where everybody is being respected, everybody is on the equal playing field, and let's choose peace. We appreciate you guys checking in with us again this week. This was another episode of Bennie and Bennie's podcast, Effective Communication. We will be here again next week. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Later.